Today, we're going to start with this series we're calling Aware. And it's kind of a 3-week series. It's a little bit different. Aware is. It's a little bit different. It's probably the first time I've ever preached a series that I can think of that is really taking Bible stories and using them as insights into how you can go do it. It's not a place of application that we're going to talk about people going through storms. You've been reading about and seeing today about Luke chapter 8, which by the way, that's where we're headed. If you got a Bible, Luke chapter 8, and we're going to talk about when Jesus calmed the storm, but really we're going to talk about when Jesus calmed the storm so that you can understand how to use these stories. I think there's two truths that are equally true with most Christians, and you may not fit into this camp, but I'm telling you, most people do. I would say these two truths look like this, right? I kind of drew it out for you. You want to share your faith more than you do, but sharing your faith stresses you out, right? A lot of people fall into that category. You want to share your faith more than you do, but sharing your faith can often stress you out because it can feel confrontive. You don't always know exactly what to say, how to say it, how that works, how that looks. And also, too, I think, a lot of times if we're being, can we just be like really transparent for a minute? I don't think preachers help you any. Guys like me, y'all look a little flat. Did y'all get coffee today? Are y'all okay? Everybody all right? We're awake. I know your team may have lost last night or whatever. I don't know. Maybe they did. Let's come on in for a minute, right? So I know that it's hard because sometimes I can tell you how I feel. I'm just going to tell you how I feel. There's been times in my life where I never forget I was in my 20s. And I went to this pastor's conference, an evangelism conference. All the pastors gathered around. And they always tend to put people on the stage that are what you've heard me refer to before as soul winners. They're people that are just really great. In fact, even if they weren't in ministry, if they went to work for Verizon, they would probably be the best salesman Verizon had. Seriously, they're just really good at it. If they went to work in any product industry, they would be phenomenal salesmen. They're just really good at, and I think salesmen get a bad rap, they're just doing their job and, thank goodness for people that can sell. But for most people, you'd feel really strange. You ever had that feeling like I'm getting sold something? You ever walk into a storeroom or a car lot or any type of business and that person's already got a script and they're walking you into that script and you can feel it, It's a really, I don't like that feeling. You've probably had that feeling. I don't like that feeling. And I think sometimes as preachers, we tend to, we're kind of extroverts, and then you got people like me that are painful extroverts, and so we make introverts incredibly nervous, and so that's just kind of how we operate. But we tend to kind of set a vibe out that unless you're willing to go knock on doors and come on Sunday night from 5 to 7 and get your list of mailing addresses so you can walk through Fieldstone Farms and then you're probably out of touch with God and you're not really doing it right. Or if you loved God more, you'd be willing to come knock on doors, right? I've seen a lot of pastors and a lot of church growth kind of people kind of push off that vibe. And I can tell you that there's really I don't think it's fair. Because a lot of people, you want to share your faith, but you don't want to have this canned approach to cold call. And I was kind of that guy. I was always the pastor sitting out there in the crowd going, man, I would start comparing myself to the guy on the stage, and I would be like, but I don't see near the results that guy does. What's wrong with me? How come I don't? I would start thinking through that, and it really bothered me. And I think a lot of people feel that way. I think, you do want to, it's not that you don't want to share your faith, but a canned script really doesn't fit the way you do it. So those are two truths. You want to share your faith more than you do, but sharing your faith stresses you out. But I'm just going to give you a big, deep breath of like Holy Ghost encouragement this morning, right? Let me tell you those are two truths. Let me tell you two truths about Jesus. One is Jesus commissions you to tell his story, but Jesus doesn't care how you do it. Okay, I'm just telling you. There's nowhere in the Bible that says when you're on a Delta flight that you have to grab the mic from the attendant and go through the Roman road. You know, some of you don't know what the Roman road is. It's cool. Google it, right? Or the 4 spiritual laws, right? But there's a lot of people that do what I do that make you think that if you're not willing to walk up straight up, like in the U-Scan line at Kroger, and take 5 minutes, do you know where you'd spend if you died today? Would you spend an eternity in? I mean, the person's going, who are you? I'm just at work at Kroger. You know, it can be weird. So I found a lot of comfort. But I do know that God wants me to share his story, right? We're called to be storytellers. We're called to be reconcilers. So one day I stumble on this verse. We're going to get to Luke 8 in a minute, I promise. So one day I stumble on this verse because I'm just trying to tell you, I've sat where you sit. And sometimes I still feel that way. But I ran up on this verse in John 4 where Jesus said this. Already he who reaps, it's the story where he talks about the fields are white with harvest. Already he who reaps is receiving wages and is gathering fruit for life eternal. So that he who sows and he who reaps may rejoice together. Don't forget that word. For in this case, the saying is true, one sows and another reaps. And when I read that verse, I remember for the first time just sitting before God with a lot of gratitude in my heart. And I realized that the pressure was off me. And I realized that I actually share my faith a lot more than I'm aware that I do. I just did it in ways that were natural in the moment. And I found that I was more of what I would call a sower. Right now, all across America, we're in harvest season, right? You go out, you see farmers harvesting things. I mean, it's fascinating. You know, I watched a combine the other day take up beans out of a field in a few hours. That's all it took. When he had labored over that for 6 months, right? Takes a while. Harvest happens fast. Planting and cultivation happens slow. But I can tell you, friend, there's never been a seed harvested that wasn't planted first. You hear what I'm saying to you? Sometimes you're just the planter. And sometimes you're the cultivator. Many of you have been cultivators. Many of you that are teaching some of our kiddos over there right now in kids ministry, you know what you're doing? You're cultivating. You're like adding like Holy Ghost miracle grow to stuff. Right? That was pretty good. You got to admit, that's a pretty good analogy. And you're adding that stuff over the years. And then that kid, she's going to go through all this weird junk, and she may walk away from the church for 5-10 years. And then one day she's going to go through this really bad breakup. And then she's going to remember, boom, you know, Jesus cares for me. Where did she get that? From some lady or some guy she doesn't even know 15 years ago, cultivating something that she can't even remember how it got in. Do you see what I'm saying? Amen. Those kind of things really work. So it liberated me, and so people ask me, often over my Christian journey, they ask me, how do you share your faith, or how can I do it better? And it was strange. I always said, well, I know this is going to sound corny, but I just listen. So what do you mean? Well, I'm telling you. Now I know this is going to shock some of y'all because I talk a lot, but I have learned, it's part of my process of being slow. I preach about that all the time, about pace and slowing myself down and slowing my mind down. But one of the biggest benefits of learning to live slower was that I was more aware. So that when I did bump into you at the U-Scan at Kroger, that I actually heard it when you said, yeah, I've got a weird diagnosis. See, before I've been like, oh, okay. Oh, well, yeah, I'll pray for you on that. Versus, or hey, yeah, my son is 35 and he's going through a divorce. Oh, man, that's awful. And then I'd be in my truck on the way, like, whew, right over my head. So I learned That if I can be aware and if I can learn to listen, let me tell you something about people. If you will listen, they will reveal to you what they're going through. They will. They really will. But you got to have eyes to see it and you got to have ears to hear it. And so we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about 3 different stories. And here's what I'm going to say to you. Here's what this Aware series is about, okay? If you can master these 3 stories, today we're talking about when Jesus calmed the storm. Next week we're going to talk about when Jesus healed a woman that had a massive health issue. And the week after that we're going to talk about when Jesus encountered a demon. And those 3 stories are pretty much all of life can fit somewhere into that. Unexpected chaos, something going on with their health, or some type of attack that came out of nowhere. Most of life can fit into that. So when you do hear somebody or you bump into somebody or going through something at work and you're like, hey, can I tell you a story? People like stories. So today we're going to talk about what does it mean to be aware in terms of being what I would call messengers of peace in unexpected chaos. That's what this story is about. Messengers of peace in unexpected chaos. So that's how we're going to be aware. Luke chapter 8. Now, here we go. Verse 22. You've heard this story many times in your Christian life. It says, now on one of those days, Jesus and his disciples got into a boat, and he said to them, let's go over to the other side of the lake. So they launched out. And as they were sailing along, he fell asleep, and a fierce gale of wind descended on the lake, and they began to be swamped and to be in danger. And they, that is some of the disciples, they came to Jesus, they woke him up. Master, we're perishing. And he got up, and it says, my Bible in the New American Standard says he rebuked the wind. It's kind of literally, stop. Stop it is literally what it means, quit. And the waves stopped and it became calm. And he said to them, where is your faith? They were fearful and amazed, saying to one another, who then is this that he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him? Now, let me tell you, this story is often, I think, I wouldn't say misused, but I think there's a portion that preachers over time take out of this story and focus on it when I don't think it's the main focus of the story. People have often used this passage to talk about, well, we need to be calm like Jesus is calm. They were, the winds and raging around, Jesus just asleep, he's just chilling, back there somewhere in the boat, right? I mean, that's why they had no faith. They just so freaked out, and we need to be more like Jesus. That is not the point of the story. Let me ask you something. These boats were not like, Princess cruise ships. They were little wooden things made by dudes, trying to fish. If you were in the Gulf of Mexico and you got in some, dinghy, and all of a sudden a tropical storm level 2 comes through, you think you're going to get a little panicked? Oh, I can promise you are. They should have been panicked. They were dying. They knew this isn't going to end well. But the point of the story isn't that Jesus is so calm. The point of the story is that it goes back to this question right here. This is the central verse, I think. They said, who is this that he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him? So what is this story going to teach us? When you encounter people and somebody goes through unexpected chaos and you work with them, you're in class with them, you sit with them, you know them, they're on your street, you know a little bit about their life. You see a post. They don't even go to your church, or maybe they live in another town. Maybe they're one of your clients, and they're going. You hear some red light goes off, and all of a sudden you're like, they're going through some unexpected chaos. Well, if you can tell them this story, you could be a sower. You also might be a harvester, but you have to tell the story. And I think this is a much better approach. So let's look at what can this story teach us. So I'm going to give you, let's just imagine for a minute that you're telling this story. This week, somebody's going to go through some unexpected chaos. They're going to get something going on in their life. And you say, hey, can I tell you a story about a time where this happened to some people that had no idea what was about to hit them? And here's what they learned from it. And I think there's 3 key truths here that if you can master these 3 truths in this story, you can be a minister of the gospel. Number 1, that here it is, no person is exempt from pain and chaos. No person. No person is exempt from pain and chaos. Now, I want to tell you something, friends. I think as Christians, I think one of the worst things we can do to people is tell them that coming to Jesus is going to make it all okay. Because a lot of times it doesn't make it all okay. I mean, I don't know about you, but when Paul came to Jesus, life after that did not get easier for him. Right? Did it? I don't know. How did it end? Head chopped off in Rome. Right? Peter came to Jesus. Yeah, he did. Life didn't get better, but it had more meaning, had more purpose. I think one of the worst things we can do is tell people, oh, just come to Jesus, it's all gonna be okay, because I think what people really want when they go through unexpected chaos, at least I know what I want. When I go through unexpected chaos, you know what I want? Relief. That's what I want. What most people want is relief, and you're not bad for that. You're not bad for, if you're going through something right now, you're not bad for just wanting it to stop. But here's the truth, right? Here's what's going to happen. Even if Jesus calms their storm, there's another one coming. And there's another one coming after that. And there's another one coming after that. And there's another one coming after that. And I'm going to tell you something. God, at least by my historical evidence, is not going to calm every storm. He's not, right? We can all attest to that. He doesn't calm every storm. So then what's the point? There's got to be a bigger point. And there is a bigger point. There is a bigger point here. There's more chaos coming, and no person is exempt from pain or chaos. That's what this story teaches us. But I think there's something else the story teaches us, and that is go to Jesus before going anywhere else. Now that sounds really simple, doesn't it? I mean, a third grader could get that. But let me tell you why that matters. I don't know how you operate when unexpected chaos comes into your life, but I can tell you how I operate. I go into fix-it mode, right? Do you ever do that? Y'all are looking at me real holy. Okay, so none of y'all do that. Let me tell you what I do, all right? If God ain't gonna make it better, I'm gonna make it better, right? You ever do that? Like go to your spiritual toolbox, tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna grab a wrench and I'm gonna get some tools and I'm gonna see to it that this thing goes away. I'm gonna make it better. And listen, there's nothing wrong with trying to make it better. God's given you dominion over how to use wisdom and all that stuff. But I was thinking about it when I was thinking about it this week. You know, do y'all notice in this story that nothing happened? They're rowing. You know, they're getting, maybe they probably didn't come prepared with buckets, but let's give them a little grace in the story. You know, we're just going to make it up like Hollywood does. So we're going to say they've even got buckets, right? They've got buckets. They can't get it out fast enough. Right? All of a sudden, they're working hard, the sail's broken down, and then somebody goes, hey, you know, I don't know, we got this Nazarene on board, maybe we should go ask him. And so they go and they talk to Jesus, and he gets, hey, stop it already. Because Jesus wasn't all chill. Jesus was exhausted. You ever slept through a storm? Oh, I have many. In fact, I turn those storm alerts on your phone that give you a heart attack at like 2:31 a.m. when they go off in the summer with a thunderstorm. Yeah, it's in the South. It happens all the time. I just can't. I've slept through more storms. Jesus was exhausted from ministry, man. He was out. He wasn't all calm in the back of the boat. He was out from ministering to people. Done, spent. But I thought when I read this story, I wonder how different life would be for me if I could somehow, you know, when you have these reflex responses, these motor skills, I wonder how different life would be for me if every time I encountered even a little bit of unexpected chaos, if my first inclination wasn't to put together a plan, if my first inclination was, I'm going to stop right here. And I'm going to say, okay, Holy Spirit, you're a discloser, John 14 says. What do I need to know about this right now? I'm aware. My eyes are open. I'm awake. Is there anything I'm not seeing? Is there anything I'm not doing? Is there anything I need to do? Anything I don't need to say? Anything I should say? Is there something right now, before I start trying to fix this thing, Is there anything you want me to know? I'm going to tell you, I can promise you right now, that is not my first default response. And I dare say it's probably not yours either. But if I could learn to do that, I think my life would be better. I really do. So I think we can tell people when they're going through unexpected chaos, hey, have you thought about going to Jesus on this? No. Yeah, he actually cares. All this stuff that's going on. And here's the core truth, the third truth that the story is really about. The first two are just, I think, support. But here's the third one, that Jesus holds absolute power over everything and anything. That is, if you want to call it this way, the moral to the story. Jesus holds absolute power over everything and anything. So when you're talking to your friends, when you're encountering somebody at work, some cousin that you haven't heard from in a while that posts like their big tragedy on Facebook, what you can discover is that you can tell them, hey, listen, can I tell you a story about a time when Jesus calmed a chaotic moment? You see, Jesus holds absolute power over anything and everything, and that is the central idea. Let's go back to the question that they asked him. Look at the question. Who then is this that he commands even the winds and the water and they obey him? You know what Jesus was to them? Now, who's asking this question? It's not a bunch of rank strangers, is it? No, it's disciples. They have been walking with him. They have been seeing him do things. They have watched him operate. And even still, you would think none of them would be shocked if they went, hey, Jesus, we got like this unforeseen storm going on. Can you just go tell everything to calm down? You know, you think they'd be real nonchalant about it? No, they're not. They're panicked. They're freaked out about it. And then when he does calm the storm, they're even more astonished, which tells me, don't feel bad if you feel spiritually dull sometimes. Right? You ever feel like your spiritual knife isn't so sharp? Right? Yeah, I felt that way many times. Well, you're in good company, friends, because these dudes walked right alongside Jesus all the time, turning water into wine, and they're still going, wow. You know? They saw him. Stay with me now. This is important. This is one of those moments where he shows them he's not just some wise rabbi. He's not just some sage. He's not just the next wise prophet in a long line of prophets. He is God in the flesh. This is not, it'd been one thing if a voice from heaven said, stop wind. Oh, yeah, we can get that. That was Yahweh doing that. Okay, good, we're good to go. You know, El Shaddai, then start speaking all these Hebrew words. No, they would have got that. No, this wasn't heaven down. This was earth up. And the man from Nazarene all of a sudden calms all of nature, and they're going, okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is God among us. Something's not right about this in the best way. You see, when you encounter people that go through unexpected chaos, if you can help them understand, hey, by the way, this is how life works. Just don't ever forget. I think it's important sometimes to be reminded of truth. I think Winston Churchill said that probably better than anybody. All of his cabinet in World War II, when the London bombings were happening, all of his cabinet he wanted to tell them the raw truth. When Hitler was bombing constantly all of London, pounding them every day. And he said, no, this is going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And our people they didn't have the internet back then. Our people need to know that Hitler's coming down. He's already into France and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And like, no, don't tell them that. They'll panic. And Churchill was famous for saying, no, I think we tell them everything. They can take it. They're adults. Tell them the full story. See, I think sometimes when people are going through really hard times, honesty is the best thing in the world. They already know it's bad. I'll never forget when my best friend was killed. And when I was 15 years old, he was killed in an auto accident. And I remember my dad had the irony of this is crazy. When my dad was 15, he lost his very best friend in an auto accident. So, I mean, it was really strange that we had that between us. And I remember one specific night, I was a sophomore in high school, and my dad just saw me crying in my room, and I wasn't like boo-hooing. I was just sitting there, and I had tears in my eyes, and he knew it was about my friend Jason. And my dad sat down with me, and I thought he would probably say something to me like, son, it's going to be okay. I didn't want to hear that. I thought he would tell me all these different, there's even a verse in Psalms that says it's cold to sing songs to a troubled heart. It's cold to sing songs to a troubled heart. And I remember what my dad said to me in that moment. He said, son, it's going to hurt for a long time. And he said, I forgot how old he was at the time, but he was in his 40s. He said, I lost Dennis when I was 15 years old, and I think about him all the time. But eventually, it'll get a little better, and you're going to be okay, but it's going to be hard for a long time. And just that honesty kind of settled me down to let me know I wasn't going to die, but it wasn't going to be easy. You see, I think people knowing, hey, this is part of life and it happens. The question is now, friend that's going through unexpected chaos, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? You can turn to Jesus before you turn to anybody else. And more importantly, Jesus holds the keys to everything and anything. He actually has power over the situation. So here's what Jesus can do. What I would say to a friend going through unexpected chaos would be this. I can't promise you that coming to Jesus is going to make this situation better. What I can tell you is that Jesus will give you peace that nothing else or nobody else can give you as you go through it. That's what the Bible talks about when it says peace beyond understanding. You see, people, when they want relief from a bad situation, and so what they want is to know why this happens. And the reality is, I cannot possibly tell you why, and you may never understand why. But when the Bible talks about there is a peace beyond understanding, what it literally means is you don't have to have intellectual understanding of why. You can get peace that kind of rises and flies above it. And that kind of peace allows us to endure. So what do we do with it? What do we do with this week as we go out and we're talking about being aware? Well, I would say my challenge to you would be ask for awareness. Ask for awareness. Have you thought about how many times Jesus uses the phrase, he says it all the time, he who has eyes to see, let him see. And he who has ears to hear, let him hear. You ever notice how many times Jesus finishes a teaching with that? What is he saying? Not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody's going to see it. See, for you to be aware, you have to want to be aware. For you to be aware of what's going on around you, you have to have situational awareness. And right now in life, I mean, you look at all that's going on in the Middle East right now, and the fighting and all the things that line up, all the people that geek out on prophecy, they're all packing their bags, I mean, it could be. I don't know. I'm not making light of it. I'm saying, I don't know. There's turbulence in the world. Ukraine. I heard one of America's strongest podcasters say, he's not even a believer, but he said just this week, he said, I stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about all this stuff going on with Israel. I'm freaked out over it. You look at our world and anxiety. You look at the business world and supply chain and everybody in the marketplace and all the things that's constantly happening in business and the economy going up and down. I will tell you, I'm 50 years old, and I can tell you, I don't recall a time in my human history, I don't recall a time in the last 5, 10, even before the pandemic, I don't recall a time in my lifespan where I've seen a human population so consistently battling anxiety that I do now. You could probably pin it on smartphones and overload of information and news and all of the things that are going on in life and constant turbulence. But I can just tell you, I have never experienced in my lifetime an era where people are more filled with anxiety as they are in the last 5 to 10 years of my walk on this earth. You hear about it all the time. People are filled with fear. So I think it's at an all-time high. So what does the Bible say that we are? Well, let's go look. You just read the verse. You made an agreement a minute ago. Look at 2 Corinthians. All this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ, and he gave us the ministry of reconciliation. See, you are a reconciler. You're a person sent into your world. You're a person sent into your school system. You're a person sent into your retirement community. You're a person sent into your hobbies. You're a person sent into your family. You're a person that's sent. You are where you are for a reason. But what you are is a reconciler. But you can't reconcile unless you have eyes to see and ears to hear. So the next time you encounter somebody going through unexpected chaos, instead of giving them a long Bible script, what if you just said to them, hey, could I tell you a story? Yeah. Well, there was this situation where these guys were about to sink in a boat. And then you walk them through the fact that Jesus holds power over anything and everything. Have you thought about turning to Jesus? See, that's disarming because it matches their situation. And you may just find yourself in a way deeper Jesus conversation than you ever thought. You might be the person God uses to bring reconciliation, because here's what we know. What we know is people are hurting and they don't know where to turn. And if we can show them where to turn, then they can spend an eternity with the Prince of Peace themselves, just like you are.
You know, it means a lot to us that you would come here today and be a part of who we are. It really does matter to us more than you might realize. Sometimes I think we underestimate the power we have to influence people. You know, if you would look around your world, you'd be amazed at how many people would receive what you have to say to them. You could be a digital missionary. You don't have to post everything on Facebook, or we're not asking you to go on your favorite social platform, but I would challenge you to look around your world. I guarantee you might have a friend, even in a different state or another part of the world. Something was said today, whether a sermon, a prayer, a song, something was said that could mean a lot to them. Man, send it to them. And you'd be amazed at how much of a difference that could make.